You're sitting in a room that smells of old money and older grudges. Your family dripping in wealth, their diamond cufflinks and Rolexes glinting under the chandelier, stares at you like you're an outsider. You're Emma Larson, a 27-year-old photographer who dared to chase art over dollar signs. And in a single moment, everything you thought you knew about your place in the world is about to shatter. Let's be real. Have you ever felt like you didn't belong in your own family? Like no matter what you did, you were always the odd one out. That's exactly where Emma was on that crisp Chicago morning. She'd grown up in the shadow of the Larson Empire, a dynasty built on real estate and ruthless ambition. Her grandfather turned one apartment building into a fortune, and her uncle Henry, the family patriarch, doubled it with a Midas touch. But Emma, she chose a camera over a corner office, and for that, she was the family disappointment. In a world obsessed with wealth, Emma saw life through a different lens, literally. While her cousins, Nathan and Sophia, chased MBAs and boardroom seats, Emma captured the raw beauty of Chicago's streets, its people, its stories. But that choice came at a cost. Whispers at family dinners, eye rolls from Aunt Evelyn, and a constant, gnawing doubt, am I enough yet, deep down. Emma held onto a flicker of hope because one person believed in her Uncle Henry. That morning, Emma sat in the law firm's skyscraper, surrounded by vultures disguised as kin, waiting to hear Uncle Henry's final wishes. She didn't expect much, maybe a book, a keepsake, something to remind her of the man who'd gifted her that first camera. But when the lawyer, Mr. Peterson, cleared his throat and read her name, the room held its breath. And then, to Emma Larson, I leave the sum of $10. $10. In Chicago, that won't even get you a fancy latte, let alone a legacy. The laughter cut through Emma like a knife. Nathan's cackle, Sophia's barely hidden smirk, Aunt Evelyn's pitying glance, it was a public execution of her pride. She wanted to disappear, to run from the room and never look back. But here's the thing about Emma, she stayed. And that choice, that moment of quiet defiance, was about to change everything. Emma's story isn't just about one brutal day. It's about what happens when the world underestimates you. Think about someone like Oprah Winfrey, who grew up with nothing, doubted by her own family, yet built an empire by staying true to her vision. Like Oprah, Emma was about to discover that sometimes, the moments that break you are the ones that remake you. But here's a mistake too many of us make. We let other people's doubts define our worth. Emma could have walked away, believing she was nothing more than a $10 footnote. Instead, she held her ground. What Emma didn't know as she sat there, the $10 check burning a hole in her wallet, was that Uncle Henry had a secret one worth $400 million. This is the story of betrayal, redemption, and a legacy that would turn the tables on everyone who laughed. So, stick with us for the next 30 minutes, because you won't believe how this underdog rewrote her story. And let me ask you, when was a time you were underestimated? Drop it in the comments below, and hit subscribe if you're ready for a tale of sweet justice. Let's dive in. The Larson family. The wealthy empire and the culture of rich sickness. In the heart of Chicago, where ambition meets opportunity, the Larson family built an empire that turned their name into a synonym for wealth. It all started with Emma Larson's grandfather, a scrappy entrepreneur who turned a single apartment building into a real estate dynasty that stretched across the Midwest. By the time Emma was born, the Larson name was etched into Chicago's skyline, from luxury condos to corporate towers. But behind the polished marble and private jets, A darker truth festered a sickness that money couldn't cure. Let's talk about what it's like to grow up in a family where your worth is measured in dollars and cents. For Emma Larson, the Larson Empire wasn't just a legacy, it was a hierarchy. And she was at the bottom. Not because she was poor. Mind you, Emma lived comfortably by most standards, but because she dared to choose a different path. While her cousins Nathan and Sophia were groomed for boardrooms, studying finance and schmoozing with Chicago's elite, Emma picked up a camera and saw the world through moments, not money, and for that, she was the family outcast. You know those family gatherings where everyone's playing a role. Aunt Evelyn was the self-appointed queen, her every word dripping with judgment. Nathan, the golden boy, was already eyeing Uncle Henry's corner office. Sophia played the perfect daughter, all smiles and spreadsheets. And Emma. She was the black sheep who'd rather photograph a South Side street vendor than a skyscraper ribbon cutting. To the Larsons, that wasn't just a choice, it was a betrayal. They called it rich sickness, a term Uncle Henry coined the belief that your net worth is your personal worth. And let's be honest, $10 in their world might as well have been pocket lint. This rich sickness isn't unique to the Larsons. It's a trap that snared some of America's wealthiest families. Think of the Vanderbilts, who built a railroad fortune only to see it crumble under infighting and extravagance. Like the Larsons, they equated wealth with superiority, letting greed poison their bonds. Studies show that 70% of wealthy families lose their fortune by the third generation, often because they prioritize status over connection. The Larsons were no different. Uncle Henry, the family patriarch, saw it clearly. He doubled the family fortune with shrewd investments, but he couldn't buy loyalty or love. Henry was the exception in the Larson clan. While Aunt Evelyn schemed to cement her status and Nathan chased vintage cars, Henry saw something in Emma that the others missed: a spark of authenticity. He'd gifted her that first camera at 12, saying, "Some people see the world in dollars. Emma, you see it in frames and moments." But even Henry wasn't immune to the family's curse. He kept his distance, his support quiet, as if afraid to challenge the Larson way too openly. And that distance left Emma wondering, was I ever really seen? Here's where so many families go wrong. They let wealth become a scoreboard, not a tool. The Larsons thought their empire made them untouchable, but it was tearing them apart. Emma, though she was about to show them what true value looks like. But before we get to that, let me ask you, what's more important in your family money or connection? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you've ever felt trapped by expectations, hit that like button. We're just getting started. Emma and Uncle Henry's secret relationship. Imagine being 12 years old, feeling like you don't quite fit in with your high-flying family, and then someone hands you a gift that changes everything. For Emma Larson, that someone was her Uncle Henry. In a family obsessed with skyscrapers and stock portfolios, Henry was the odd one out, just like Emma. The day he gave her that camera, he didn't just give her a gadget. He gave her a way to see the world. "Emma," he said, his voice low and kind. "Some people chase dollars. You chase moments. Hold on to that." That camera wasn't just a gift, it was a lifeline. While the Larson family judged Emma for choosing photography over a corner office, Uncle Henry was her quiet champion. He didn't shower her with money or public praise, but he showed up in ways that mattered. A phone call on her birthday, a nod of approval at her college graduation, and, most mysteriously, a secret that Emma wouldn't uncover until it was almost too late. Henry wasn't just her uncle, he was her biggest fan, hiding in plain sight. Here's where it gets wild. Under the pseudonym James Whitaker, Uncle Henry was secretly buying Emma's photographs from galleries across the country. Every major sale she made, that was him. Not out of pity, but because he believed her work captured something the Larson wealth never could truth. He even had a private penthouse in Chicago, a sanctuary filled wall to wall with Emma's art. But Henry never told her, not a word. And if you're thinking, why the cloak and dagger routine? Well, that's the question that haunted Emma, too. 3 weeks before Henry's death, he called Emma out of the blue. "How's my favorite photographer?" he asked, his voice frailer than she remembered. Emma told him about her latest project, Urban Isolation, capturing the loneliness of city life. "I saw your work at the Hamilton Gallery," he said. "It's extraordinary." Emma was stunned. "You were there. Why didn't you say hi?" There was a pause, a heavy silence. "I prefer to observe," he replied. "Emma, I'm proud of you. It takes courage to follow your heart." At the time, she thought he was just being kind. Now, she wonders if he was saying goodbye. Henry's secret support wasn't unusual. Plenty of people cheer for their loved ones from the shadows. Take Annie Leibovitz, the iconic photographer. Early in her career, a few quiet collectors bought her work, giving her the confidence to keep going. But here's where we mess up when we don't tell people we believe in them. They can feel alone. Henry thought he was protecting Emma's independence by staying distant, but that distance left her doubting his love. And that doubt, it made the $10 check at the will reading sting even more. Emma didn't know it yet, but Henry's secret was about to turn her world upside down. His quiet faith in her, those gallery purchases, those late-night calls was building to something bigger than she could imagine. But before we reveal what Henry had planned, let's talk about you. Who's been your secret champion? Maybe a teacher, a friend, or even a family member who believed in you when no one else did. Drop their story in the comments. And if this is hitting home, hit that like button. We're diving deeper next because Emma's about to discover a truth worth $400 million. The will reading public humiliation for $10. It was a rainy Thursday morning in Chicago, and Emma Larson walked into a room that felt more like a lion's den than a law office. The Larson family, her Aunt Evelyn, cousins Nathan and Sophia, and a handful of business associates sat poised, their eyes glinting with greed. This was the moment they'd all been waiting for the reading of Uncle Henry's will. Emma didn't expect much, maybe a book, a camera, some small token of the man who'd believed in her. But what happened next would burn itself into her memory forever. Have you ever walked into a room and felt every eye judging you? That's where Emma was 27 years old, a photographer in a family of tycoons. And the odd one out, the Larsons had built an empire on real estate and investments, and they expected every heir to fall in line. Emma's choice to chase art instead of wealth was, to them, a slap in the face. As she took her seat, she could feel their pity, their disdain, like a weight pressing down. But she stayed, hoping for a sign that Uncle Henry's faith in her wasn't a lie. "Mr. Peterson's voice cut through the silence like a blade. "We are gathered to discuss the last will and testament of Henry James Larson." One by one, he listed the bequests. Aunt Evelyn got the Lake Michigan summer house. Her smug nod said she'd expected it. Nathan inherited Henry's $1 million vintage car collection, his grin wide enough to light the room. Sophia received a priceless art collection, her hands clasped in delight. And then, Peterson's eyes landed on Emma. The room held its breath. "To my niece, Emma Larson, I leave the sum of $10. $10. In a room where people spent more on their morning coffee, That $10 was a punch to the gut. Nathan didn't even try to hide his glee. "What are you gonna do with that fortune?" "Emma." "Buy a new lens," he jeered. Evelyn's voice was colder, dripping with vindication. "Perhaps this will teach you the value of practical choices." The laughter spread like wildfire, each chuckle a dagger in Emma's heart. She wanted to vanish, to melt into the floor and escape the smirks and stares. But here's the thing she didn't run. That moment wasn't just about Emma, it's a universal truth we've all faced. When people laugh at your dreams, it's not about you, it's about their own insecurities. Think of Leona Helmsley, the hotel magnate who left millions to her dog while snubbing her family. Public bequests can be weapons, designed to wound or teach. The Larsons thought Henry's $10 was a final jab at Emma's failure. But here's where they went wrong. They judged her worth by a number, not her heart. And that's a mistake we all make, letting others' scorn define who we are. As Emma tucked that check into her wallet, her mind raced with questions. Had Henry lied about being proud of her? Was this his way of saying she'd never be enough? The hurt was raw, the doubt crushing. But deep down, a spark of pride kept her in that room. She wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing her break. And that choice, staying when every instinct screamed to flee, was about to lead her to a truth that would turn the tables on everyone. So, tell me, when was a time you faced humiliation and stood your ground? Drop it in the comments. And if you're rooting for Emma, hit that subscribe button. The real twist is coming next. The real secret: Emma is the heir to $400 million. Emma Larson was seconds from walking out of that Chicago skyscraper. The sting of her family's laughter and that humiliating $10 check burning in her heart. The Larson family thought they'd won divvying up Uncle Henry's fortune while dismissing Emma as a footnote. But as she reached the door, Mr. Peterson's voice stopped her cold. "Miss Larson, a moment, please." The room froze. Something in his eyes, a quiet, almost conspiratorial intensity, told Emma this wasn't over. And oh, was she right? Have you ever had a moment where you felt the ground shift beneath you, where everything you thought you knew flipped upside down? That's where Emma stood, her pride battered, her trust in Uncle Henry hanging by a thread. She followed Peterson back to the table, her heart pounding. The room felt different now, empty of her family's judgment, but heavy with possibility. Peterson's solemn mask fell away, replaced by something almost expectant. He gestured to the chair at the head of the table. "Henry's place. Please, sit," he said. "This won't take long." That envelope was no ordinary document. It was Henry's final word, written in his elegant script, and it held a secret that would change Emma's life forever. Peterson spoke softly, his voice steady. "Your uncle was diagnosed with terminal cancer 8 months ago. He kept it private, but he spent his final days crafting a plan for you." Emma broke the seal, her breath catching as she unfolded the letter. And then, she read the words that turned her world upside down. "My dearest Emma, the $10 was a necessary deception. You are the primary beneficiary of my estate, $400 million, my majority stake in the Larson Group, and my personal properties are yours." $400 million. Let that sink in. That's not just buy a yacht money, that's buy a fleet, and a private island money. But Henry's letter wasn't just about the cash. He explained why he'd orchestrated the $10 charade to protect Emma from her family's greed and to show her their true colors. "I needed you to see them unmasked," he wrote. "Now you know who they are. And boy, did she." Nathan's cackle, Evelyn's pitying smirk, Sophia's half-hearted shame they'd shown their hands. thinking Emma was nothing. Oh, how wrong they were. Henry's strategy wasn't just clever, it was a masterclass in protecting what matters. Think of Howard Hughes, the eccentric billionaire who used decoys and secrecy to shield his fortune from opportunists. Like Hughes, Henry knew that wealth can turn family into vultures. By letting the Larsons think they'd won, he gave Emma time to prepare for the storm that would come when they learned the truth. But here's where people mess up. They don't plan for how money changes relationships. Henry's letter warned Emma, money is a servant, not a master. Be wise about who you trust. As Emma sat there, the weight of $400 million settling over her, she felt a whirlwind of emotions, grief for Henry, anger at his deception, and a dawning realization that her life had just changed forever. That $10 check, once a symbol of shame, was now a badge of Henry's faith in her. She wasn't just the black sheep anymore, she was the heir to an empire. So, let me ask you, if you suddenly inherited millions, what's the first thing you'd do? Drop it in the comments. And if you're loving this twist, hit that like button. The real question is, how will Emma handle this new reality? Let's find out. The adaptation journey from photographer to billionaire. Imagine waking up one day to find out you're not just a struggling artist anymore, you're a billionaire. That's where Emma Larson found herself, clutching a letter from her late Uncle Henry that revealed she'd inherited $400 million, the majority stake in the Larson Group, and a secret penthouse filled with her art. It was a fairy tale twist, but fairy tales don't come with instruction manuals. Emma was a photographer, not a tycoon. How do you go from developing film in a closet darkroom to managing an empire? That's the journey we're diving into now. Emma's new reality was exhilarating, but it was also terrifying. One minute, she was worrying about rent. The next, she had a checking account with $100,000 for immediate expenses and a credit card with a limit higher than her old yearly income. But wealth like that doesn't just change your bank balance, it changes how you see yourself. Emma could have lost herself in the glitz, buying designer clothes or a fancy car to prove she belonged. Instead, she moved into Henry's secret penthouse on Chicago's Gold Coast, a place no one in the family knew about, and turned it into her sanctuary, a studio where she could still be Emma, the photographer. That penthouse wasn't just a home, it was Henry's final gift, a museum of Emma's work, bought under his pseudonym, James Whitaker. Every photo, from her student days to her latest series, was there, meticulously arranged. And get this, Henry had other aliases, too, snapping up her art so no one would suspect one collector was obsessed. Talk about a fanboy, but Henry's note hit harder than the millions. This space is yours, Emma. Create without limits. It was a reminder that this wealth wasn't about becoming someone new. It was about amplifying who she already was. Emma's adaptation wasn't just about learning to sign bigger checks, it was about balancing her old life with her new power. Think of Mark Zuckerberg, who went from coding in a dorm to running a tech empire. Like Zuckerberg, Emma dove into the deep end, studying business with tutors, reading up on investments, and learning the ropes of the Larson Group, which employed thousands. But here's where most new millionaires stumble. They let wealth define them. Studies show 70% of sudden millionaires blow their fortune within a decade, chasing status or bad investments. Emma, she clung to her camera, her art grounding her when the numbers got dizzying. Picture this Emma, still in her thrift store jeans, sitting across from advisors throwing around terms like blue chip stocks and private equity. She admitted to Patricia, "It's overwhelming." And Patricia, a no-nonsense pro, just nodded and said, It would overwhelm anyone. We'll go step by step. Emma wasn't trying to become a Wall Street shark. She was learning enough to honor Henry's trust. And let's be real, managing $400 million while still editing photos in a darkroom, that's the kind of multitasking we all wish we could pull off. Emma's journey from photographer to billionaire wasn't about trading her lens for a ledger, it was about using her new power to amplify her purpose. That $10 check, once a symbol of shame, now hung framed in her studio. A reminder of Henry's lesson. True worth isn't counted in dollars, but the real test was coming. How would her family react when they learned she held the keys to the Larson empire? So, let me ask you, if you suddenly had millions, how would you stay true to yourself? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you're cheering for Emma, hit that subscribe button. The family drama's about to heat up. The Larson family from ridicule to ingratiation. Just weeks after laughing Emma Larson out of the room with her $10 check, the Larson family got the shock of their lives. The SEC filings hit the news like a bombshell. Emma, the family outcast, wasn't just an heir, she was the heir, holding $400 million, the majority stake in the Larson Group, and Uncle Henry's legacy. The same people who'd mocked her dreams were now scrambling to rewrite the script. But the question was, could they undo the damage they'd done? Or was Emma ready to play a new game? Ever had someone who dismissed you suddenly try to cozy up when you succeed? That's exactly what Emma faced. The Larsons, who'd built their identity on wealth and status, couldn't fathom that their black sheep niece now held the keys to their empire. Aunt Evelyn, the self-proclaimed matriarch, was the first to call. "Darling," she cooed, her voice syrupy. There seems to be some confusion about Henry's intentions. Emma's response was cool. No confusion, Aunt Evelyn. His intentions were crystal clear. That call was just the beginning. At that dinner, the air was thick with unspoken agendas. Evelyn played the gracious host, but her every word was a chess move, probing for control. Nathan, still clutching the keys to his inherited car collection, tried a different tack. "Look, Emma, you're not cut out for this," he said, his fake concern almost laughable. "Let me handle the company, you stick to your photos." As if running a $400 million empire was just a side hustle. Sophia, though, was quieter. Her guilt from the will reading written all over her face. Emma watched them all, her artist's eye catching every flicker of insincerity. The Larsons' flip from ridicule to ingratiation is a classic case of what money does to relationships. Think of the Johnson & Johnson family, where inheritance disputes turned siblings into courtroom enemies. Psychologists say wealth amplifies existing dynamics, greed, envy, or remorse all come roaring to the surface. The Larsons were no different. Evelyn wanted power, Nathan wanted profit, but Sophia. She was starting to see Emma differently. The mistake here is one we all risk trusting too quickly when someone's motives shift with your success. Emma wasn't falling for it. She'd seen their true colors at the will reading. Sophia's confession was a crack in the Larson facade, a hint that not every bridge was burned. Over time, she and Emma began rebuilding, not as heirs, but as two women trying to find themselves beyond the family name. But Evelyn and Nathan, they doubled down, scheming to influence Emma or challenge the will. Emma, though, was no longer the unsure artist they'd mocked. She was learning the game, studying business, leaning on advisors, and holding her ground. That $10 check, now framed in her penthouse, wasn't a joke anymore. It was a reminder of who she'd always been, someone who didn't need their approval. Emma's family thought they could manipulate her, but they underestimated the woman Henry had chosen. She wasn't just holding millions, She was holding her truth. And that truth was about to spark something bigger than the Larson empire, a legacy of her own. So, tell me, have you ever had someone switch up on you when you succeeded? Drop your story in the comments. And if you're loving Emma's comeback, hit that like button. We're not done yet. Her biggest move is coming up. Redefining legacy. The Emma Larson Gallery. Emma Larson didn't just inherit $400 million from her uncle Henry, she inherited a chance to rewrite the Larson legacy. While her family scrambled to curry favor or cling to their old power, Emma was building something new, the Emma Larson Gallery, a beacon for emerging artists in Chicago's vibrant art scene. This wasn't just a gallery, it was a statement. Emma was done being the black sheep. She was ready to create a legacy that wasn't about wealth, but about impact. Ever had a dream so big it scared you? That's what Emma felt as she poured millions into turning a rundown warehouse into a state-of-the-art gallery. This wasn't about hanging pretty pictures, it was about giving artists like her, the ones who'd been overlooked or underfunded, a place to shine. Emma knew what it was like to scrape by, to wonder if her art mattered. Now, with Henry's fortune behind her, she could open doors for others, and one story in particular shows just how much that mattered. Maria was a single mom from Chicago's South Side, a photographer whose raw, soulful work had never made it past Instagram. Emma saw herself in Maria the same hunger, the same fight to be seen. So, she gave Maria a studio, a grant, and a spot in the gallery's first exhibition. "You've got something to say," Emma told her. "Let the world hear it." And yeah, it's safe to say Maria's not just posting on social media anymore. She's got collectors calling. That's the kind of legacy Emma was building. One artist at a time. Emma's gallery wasn't just a passion project, it was a radical redefinition of the Larson family's wealth. Compare it to someone like Bill Gates, who turned his fortune into the Gates Foundation, tackling global health and education. Like Gates, Emma restructured the Larson Foundation, shifting its focus from safe, tax-friendly donations to elite museums to funding arts education in underserved communities, scholarships for young creatives, and direct support for artists like Maria. But here's where most philanthropists trip up. They chase prestige over impact, funding flashy projects that don't change lives. Emma. She chose purpose over pride. Picture Emma, still rocking her thrift store jeans, sitting in a boardroom pitching art programs to suits who'd rather fund another yacht party. Her advisor, Patricia, raised an eyebrow when Emma proposed the gallery. "It's not exactly profitable," she warned. Emma just smiled. "Profit's not the point. Possibility is, and let's be real, turning a warehouse into a haven for artists while running a $400 million empire. That's the kind of glow-up that deserves a slow clap." The Emma Larson Gallery wasn't just about art. It was about proving that wealth could serve a higher purpose. Emma kept shooting her own photos, her new series diving into themes of identity and privilege, inspired by her own journey. She donated every sale to the foundation because for her, this wasn't about getting richer, it was about giving back. Henry's letter had told her to create without limits, and that's exactly what she did. But the family wasn't done with her yet. How would they react to this new Emma? So, tell me if you had millions to change the world. What would you do? Drop it in the comments. And if you're inspired by Emma's vision, hit that like button. We've got more to come. Uncovering Uncle Henry's secret talent. Emma Larson thought she knew her Uncle Henry, the shrewd businessman, the quiet supporter, the man who left her $400 million and a legacy to redefine. But one evening, in the secret penthouse he'd filled with her art, Emma stumbled on a discovery that turned everything she thought she knew about him upside down. Inside a forgotten box, she found a collection of photographs not hers, but Henry's. And they weren't just snapshots. They were masterpieces, capturing a side of Chicago and of Henry nobody had ever seen. Have you ever discovered something about someone you loved that made you see them in a whole new light? That's what Emma felt as she sifted through Henry's work. These weren't the photos of a tycoon playing at art. They were the work of a true artist, someone who saw the soul of the city when others only saw dollar signs. From Southside barbershops to Pilsen street festivals, Henry's lens captured the Chicago that the Larson empire ignored. But why had he hidden this talent? Why had he buried this part of himself? Henry Larson, the man who doubled the family fortune, was living a double life. By day, he was the Larson patriarch, signing deals and shaking hands. By night, he was out with his camera, chasing moments the way Emma did. But the Larson family didn't value art, they valued assets. So, Henry tucked his passion away, like a secret diary nobody could read. And here's the kicker, he'd been Emma's secret collector, buying her work as James Whittaker, because he saw in her the artist he'd never let himself be. Talk about a plot twist even Night Shyamalan couldn't dream up. Emma didn't just keep Henry's photos in a box, she turned them into a legacy. She launched an exhibition, Henry Larson, The Hidden Lens, at her gallery, showcasing his work alongside new artists she was supporting. It was like discovering Vivian Mayer, the nanny whose secret street photography stunned the art world after her death. Like Mayer, Henry's talent was hidden by circumstance, family pressure, societal expectations. Studies show that 80% of people abandon creative passions due to external demands, trading dreams for practicality. Henry's photos were proof he'd wrestled with that choice, and Emma was determined to honor the path he didn't take. The buzz around The Hidden Lens lit up Chicago's art scene. Critics raved about Henry's empathy and skill, wondering what might have been if he'd chosen art over business. Emma stood in the gallery, watching strangers connect with her uncle's work, and felt closer to him than ever. She wasn't just running a gallery, she was bridging two lives, hers and Henry's, through art. And yeah, it's pretty poetic that the guy who left her $10 in front of everyone left her a secret gallery of his own dreams. That's the kind of legacy worth more than any fortune. Henry's hidden talent showed Emma that even those we admire can live divided lives, caught between duty and desire. By sharing his work, she wasn't just honoring him, she was inspiring others to chase their own buried dreams. So, what's a passion you've tucked away because life got in the way? Drop it in the comments. And if Emma and Henry's story is hitting home, hit that like button. We're heading to the final chapter of Emma's journey. Stay with us. The end, a lesson on true value and a call to action. 1 year after a $10 check and a room full of laughter nearly broke her, Emma Larson stood at the center of her own legacy. The Emma Larson Gallery wasn't just a space for art, it was a testament to what happens when you refuse to let others define your worth. From a humiliated outsider to a billionaire philanthropist. Emma's journey wasn't just about money, it was about discovering the true value of authenticity, compassion, and courage. And as she stood on the anniversary of Uncle Henry's death, she was ready to share his final lesson with the world. Ever look back on a moment and realize it meant more than you thought? That's what Emma felt as she stood in her gallery, surrounded by Henry's hidden photographs and the work of young artists she'd lifted up. Henry's final letter, delivered that night by Mr. Peterson, hit her like a wave. The harder work now begins holding on to yourself amidst comfort, Maintaining purpose when necessity no longer drives you. It was a reminder that wealth could amplify her vision, but only if she stayed true to the artist she'd always been. And that $10 check, now framed in her studio. It wasn't a joke, it was a symbol of everything she'd overcome. The opening of Henry Larson. The hidden lens wasn't just a win for Emma, it was a love letter to the uncle who'd seen her when no one else did. The Chicago art scene buzzed, with critics calling Henry's work a revelation of empathy and skill. Even Aunt Evelyn, the queen of Larson's smugness, showed up, her usual icy demeanor softened by a flicker of respect. Sophia, wrestling with her own regrets, admitted she'd never truly known Henry. And Nathan, well, let's just say he kept his vintage car keys close and his opinions closer. But Emma, she was no longer playing their game, she was rewriting the rules. Emma's story echoes the journeys of icons like J.K. Rowling, who went from struggling single mom to global phenomenon but never lost her storytelling soul. Like Rowling, Emma used her wealth as a tool, not a trophy. She poured millions into the Larson Foundation, funding art programs for kids in Chicago's toughest neighborhoods and scholarships for dreamers like Maria. But here's where most people stumble. They let success pull them away from their core. Psychology shows that sudden wealth can erode identity, with 60% of new millionaires reporting feelings of isolation or loss of purpose. Emma dodged that trap by keeping her camera close and her values closer. As Emma looked out over the city that night, she wasn't just a billionaire or a gallery owner, she was still Emma, the photographer who saw beauty in the overlooked. Henry's greatest gift wasn't the $400 million. It was the freedom to define success on her own terms. That framed $10 check, hanging beside her photos, was a daily reminder your worth isn't counted in dollars, but in the impact you create. So, let me ask you, what's your $10 check? What moment of doubt or rejection pushed you to prove yourself? Drop it in the comments. And if Emma's story inspired you, hit that like button and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Emma Larson's story isn't just about a jaw-dropping inheritance. It's about what happens when you hold on to yourself in the face of wealth, doubt, or betrayal. Henry taught her that money is a servant, not a master, and she's using it to build a legacy of art, compassion, and possibility. So, take a page from Emma's book, find your truth, chase your moments, and never let anyone tell you what you're worth. Thanks for joining us on this journey. Subscribe for more stories like this, and let's keep the conversation going. What's your legacy going to be?